But I was thinking about the framing of today was what Democrats need to do to step up and meet this moment, and specifically how Democrats need to confront Trump and MAGA's fascism. And I saw you did a post that would kind of went viral, and I reshared. And then yesterday I was talking to Jess Craven, similar to about this, like what the establishment leadership needs to do. And she was all in. She goes, "Man, Schumer and Jeffries got to go. They don't have it." We're talking to Brian Tyler Cohen, folks. You know him, you love him. I had already pressed live, and then this thing goes live in the most awkward of ways sometimes, right when you're in mid conversation. Brian is the host of his own show on YouTube. Brian also has a Substack. You have to follow him. Brian has the ear of progressives and also Democrats, elected officials that come on his show. Gavin Newsom has gone on his show before, probably listens to Brian and said, "Hey, maybe platforming Charlie Kirk and Steve Bannon is not the way to go." So instead, he's decided to fight back. And I have Brian because we're in a moment, folks. They're going full authoritarian. And by they, I mean Trump and MAGA. Just last night, Texas Republicans took the cue from their king and daddy and said, okay, we'll go ahead and pass the vote to redistrict / openly admitting stealing 5 House seats. Nicole Collier, black woman, state representative, is essentially being kidnapped because she said, yeah, I don't want white law enforcement officers following me. Oh, in Texas, of all places.
Yeah.
Donald Trump is purging the federal government, purging judges. The Republican Party has gone all in, doing his bidding. They are throwing Ukraine under the bus, embracing Vladimir Putin, embracing Viktor Orban. ICE agents are now joining Washington police, right here, Washington, D.C. police, picking up just immigrants. There's a quota. Deportations have gone up. They're going after elected officials. Alex Padilla, folks, you're not a senator. They don't care. They'll go after senators. They went after Mayor Baraka in Newark. Folks, this to me is an authoritarian project on steroids because they're getting a bit desperate. Donald Trump is underwater, and they're like, who's going to stop us? Well, the only opposition party that we really have in terms of a political party is the Democrats. And Brian, I haven't talked to you in a long time, but I still feel the Democrats as a whole now, haven't met the moment. You saw Ken Martin, and I'm just going to set the stage and give it to you. DNC chair Ken Martin, who finally, I think it was last week, a week and a half ago, said, we have to fight fire with fire. I'm like, thank you. You're almost there. I gave him credit, Brian. And then you see Gavin Newsom realize, bending the knee to bad faith right-wing talking points doesn't work. You've seen him openly say, all right, mother effers, bring it. California will also then get seats. And then he has these 2 brilliant young folks who've taken over his social media. They're just attacking Trump, and now Newsom's popularity has skyrocketed. But then you see Hakeem Jeffries, instead of spending his time embracing Zoran Mamdani just a couple of days ago, went on TV, and then they said, well, Andrew Cuomo has a good point, and they still haven't embraced Mamdani, right? So you're seeing a split and a fissure within the Democratic Party on a whole bunch of issues that I think are defining issues, Brian, taking on the oligarchy, how to fight Trump, Israel, Gaza, and many of them have not evolved. Some of them have. That's my take on this. I believe they need to go friggin' balls out, put on the brass knuckles, and fight. And whoever does that will be rewarded by the base. I yield the floor to you.
Look, I couldn't agree more. I think if you are not fighting in this moment, you laid out everything that's going on in this country. You laid out the extrajudicial actions by this administration, the extent to which this administration is trying to normalize us to the idea of military members roaming our streets. It's already happening in my city of Los Angeles. It's happening in Washington, D.C. So we are seeing every single instance of this administration kind of descending full tilt into autocracy, ushering in this dictatorial rule that Trump wants to see so badly. And if you're not meeting this moment with the urgency that it deserves, you shouldn't be in elected office. Look, I've been heaping a lot of attention onto Newsom for 2 reasons. One, to incentivize him to do more. And look, you alluded to the fact that he was testing out different strategies. He spoke with Charlie Kirk, obviously got a ton of blowback, rightfully so, but now he's landed in this frame where he's like, okay, it is lean, every inch forward, full blown aggressive posture toward these Republicans. And so it's to give him kind of positive reinforcement to continue doing what he's doing right now, because oftentimes these politicians need that. If we don't give them any positive reinforcement when they're doing something right, What's the incentive to do more things that
Exactly.
are right? But it's also to send a message to these other Democrats around the country. Wake the fuck up. Look at all the attention that Newsom is getting right now from people who, by the way, are not just politically aligned with him. You've got uber progressives who are out there saying, hey, man, I don't agree with Gavin Newsom on everything that he stands for politically. You've also got people that say, I don't agree with Gavin Newsom on damn near anything he stands for politically. But the guy deserves credit because he's out there and he's fighting the fight. And so keeping attention onto him at this moment will hopefully send a message to these other Republicans, these other Democrats out there, whether they're in the House, in the Senate, whether they're running for office, even these presidential contenders in 2028, that this is what we need to see. Like we are so far past the point where we have, like where the 2020 Joe Biden-esque, we want politics to be boring. We don't want to think about our president. We want to wake up and not think about politics at all. Like as nice as that sounds, that world is behind us. So at this point, you can either like get in this fight and actually meet the moment with the urgency that it deserves. And if you're not willing to fight, that's fine, but you shouldn't be in elected office at this point right now. So I view my position in this ecosystem as trying to kind of offer an incentive structure for everybody who's trying to figure out which way to go. These are politicians after all, to figure out which way to go, that this is the way, this is what's going to get them attention. This is what's going to get them a spot on my platform, on my coverage. And if you don't want to have that posture, that's fine, but you will fade into the background and probably not succeed in this political environment.
And I think that's why your platform is so important for those who are just tuning us in. Brian has like one of the number one shows and number one progressive shows. And I think it's important for these people to realize because they're so insulated, Brian. They're so insulated by their corporate donors. They're so insulated by certain organizations like AIPAC. They're so insulated by the old way of doing business. They're so insulated by their old ideologies and talking points. And they don't bust out of the cocoon. And then they're told, even by some centrists and Republicans, oh, the Democratic Party is too woke. So you have to hijack the party back from these woke extremists, right? And I say that looking at the strategies, right? You need agility as well. So Gavin Newsom, let's just stick with Gavin Newsom for a second. Gavin Newsom tried out the strategy of, okay, maybe this is where the trends are shifting in America. Maybe we need to find the liberal Joe Rogan, and maybe I'll be the liberal Joe Rogan. And on my podcast, the first two guests that I'll invite are Charlie Kirk and Steve Bannon, and I'll concede on some talking points and throw trans people under the bus. Maybe that'll win over the centrists and the independents and the Republicans. What happened, Brian? It did not. They mocked him and ridiculed him and saw him as weak. And then he lost his base. So then Newsom's like, okay, let me be agile. That's what politicians do, folks. I don't worship politicians. Politicians aren't my gods, right? Like they're just tools. Our job is to sharpen the tools. So
Yeah.
Newsom's like, let me fight. And now, folks, CNN's Harry Enton yesterday, I was talking to Jess and Danielle Moody. He has skyrocketed. Gavin Newsom has done like a 180. Okay. So then you would think maybe, just maybe, Brian, the Democrats would figure out. But now they're bringing out the centrists. Like, and this is where I want to talk about the Elisa Slotkins, because I think there's a civil war within the Democratic Party for the future of the Democratic Party, the spirit of the Democratic Party. Elisa Slotkin was chosen to follow up Donald Trump in his State of the Rant address. Elisa Slotkin called herself a centrist from Michigan, even though she very educated, went to like Ivy League schools and was a CIA officer, like, promotes the gee whiz, podunk, simple Midwestern, nonsense. And she came up with the war plan a couple of months ago, Brian, just recently, that said the war plan is that we have to go against the weak and the woke. I'm not making this up. That was her war plan, right? And she says, we can't have the AOCs and this and that. All right. Now Alyssa Slotkin realizes, maybe that might be a little off. And so now she's trying to do a mea culpa, and she went on Colbert and then she went on Breaking Points. Talk to us about that strategy of the Democratic Party.
Yeah. So I think when I think about weakness, I actually think that it's not standing for and fighting for something that you are actually passionate about, and that will assist in what should be our foundational principle of helping people, helping working class people. Like that's what the Democratic Party has been for decades and decades and decades. If you're not figuring out how to help working class people, how to grow the middle class, if that's not your North Star, I don't know what you're doing. And frankly, if you're not able to get out there and fight and stand behind your words and stand on business, that's what I think weakness. That's what I think weakness looks like. In this moment in particular, um, really, like, the way I think of it is, and I don't know whether it's because some of these, Democratic politicians are worried about about sounding alarmist, but the moment that we're in right now is so precarious and so
Yeah.
dangerous, and we've never experienced anything like this in American history, but we have seen this stuff happen in other countries, and we've seen what this path leads to. We've seen where this trajectory goes. We have seen democracies fall into illiberal democracies very much in the same way that we're seeing right now. J.B. Pritzker is pretty clear-eyed about talking about how many days it took for Germany to fall. It was 53 days.
Yep.
And the steps that they took that they took in the Third Reich were not dissimilar to what we're seeing right now in terms of expansion of the executive branch, the consolidation of power over the military, undermining our elections. We're seeing all of this stuff play out in real time. And so, again, I don't know if it's this idea of we don't want to seem alarmist because we've done, nearly 10 years of crying out about Trump, but the reality is, like, that's what this moment calls for. If you're not being clear-eyed about the threats that are facing us right now, that's what weakness looks like. It's not like doing this 5D chess. We have to figure out, like, what to say so as not to feel cringe in front of the Republicans. Like, lean in, recognize the issues that are confronting us right now, and figure out what concrete steps you're going to do to confront them. And if it's punching down on your own party, punching down on marginalized communities, punching down on people who are worried about the trans community, like, give me a fucking break. If that's where your energy is focused right now in this misguided effort to try and appeal to folks who, by the way, are never going to give you the time of day, like these hardcore MAGA Republicans, that ain't it. Look at the people who are gaining the majority of attention right now. I mean, Bernie and AOC traveling the country, doing these tours that are bringing out tens of thousands of people.
And Brian,
Like,
tell him what the tour was about. Tell him what the framing was.
it's stop oligarchy. Like, you know what I mean? Stopping oligarchy, which is something that's so rife in the Republican Party stands for it right now, today, giving tax cuts to millionaires and billionaires. It is heaping benefits onto Donald Trump's inner circle. It's hosting crypto dinners so that he can do crony capitalism and give kickbacks to his friends who pay him. Like, that's what the whole thing is about. If we're focused on punching down on marginalized communities, we're missing the fucking plot. So I would just, I would push back against anybody who's looking to, again, make some misguided overtures to some faction of Donald Trump's base who is not going to support, a Republican light. It is to stand on business, to fight for what you actually believe in large part, the populist ideals that people are looking for. It's what's garnering the vast majority of passion in politics today. It's what we're seeing from the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. And by the way, it's how Trump himself got into office.
Yep.
His populism was fake. It was a complete bullshit shtick where he promised that he was going to, usher in a manufacturing renaissance and a jobs boom and a middle class tax cut and an infrastructure plan that was going to help all Americans. It's that he was going to focus on the cost of eggs and groceries and housing and rent. He didn't do any of that stuff. He gave himself a tax cut for millionaires and billionaires. He went forward into building a $200 million ballroom for himself at the White House. How many people out there are going to be able to enjoy that ballroom? He gave himself crypto dinners. He started a cell phone plan. Like, give me a break if you are actually conceding to this idea that Donald Trump is a populist president. But he knew that it was the right way to get votes. And so my contention is you do that in a virtuous way. You be honest about what you're trying to do. And then most importantly, you execute on those policies when you actually get into office so that people have some degree of trust in their elected officials.
A lot to unpack there, Brian, but I believe that one of the winning messages, which is so easy, it's a layup right there in front of you, just a matter of whoever wants to take it, is the 99% versus the 1%, the workers versus the billionaires, the majority versus the elites. Oh, the people versus the broligarchy. It's right there in front of you. That is the winning message, but they refuse to touch it, right? And when they do touch it, people like AOC and Bernie, they went to red states. They had Trump voters who are like, yeah, damn right. Why are these rich people getting richer and taking away now my Medicaid and taking away, public education and taking away the infrastructure? And what the hell? $3.3 billion tax cut, permanent tax cuts for the rich. And now my kid lost Medicaid. Right in the New York Times, there's an op-ed. And the op-ed right now is, I'm a conservative. My son needs Medicaid to survive, right? This is going to hit people. So you would think that's the winning ticket. I know it's the winning ticket, right? That's an economic populist message that basically unites a lot of people who voted for Donald Trump, but also supported Bernie, right? A lot of people voted for Donald Trump in 2024, and they also voted for, wait for it, AOC. A lot of people voted for Donald Trump, and they're like, you know what? I'm going to give this Democratic Socialist Mamdani a try. But again, I want to remind everyone, I'm just using Elisa Slotkin. When Bernie and AOC had the successful Fighting Oligarchy tour, you know what they said? I don't think people understand what the word oligarchy is. What's the thing here about it, right? So you see the corporate donors of the Democratic base push these people that no one wants, like the Elisa Slotkins and the others, right? And meanwhile, and AOC talked about it when she rallied for Zoran Mamdani. She said openly, I don't know if you saw it in New York when there was that big rally right before the vote. She says, we have tried to reach out to the Democratic leadership and they have rebuffed us. I'm paraphrasing, right? Now, I'm going to give an example because I keep the receipts. AOC, one of the most popular, dynamic, well-known Democratic leaders, right, threw her hat in the ring to be the head of the oversight. Brian, you know who they gave it to? 73-year-old Jerry Connolly, who then became 74-year-old Jerry Connolly, who's now dead. Rest in peace, Jerry Connolly, great representative for Virginia. He threw his hand in the ring as a 73-year-old 7 months ago with cancer. Nancy Pelosi, from her hospital bed, folks, rallied the votes for Jerry Connolly instead of AOC. All right. Communications, messaging, right? It's huge. It's important in the age of social media. They gave it to 71-year-old Debbie Dingell. You know who else threw her hand in the ring? Jasmine Crockett. So right there, for example, right there, malpractice. And then you see, let's go to New York. Zoran Mamdani. He comes out of nowhere, runs basically on an economic populist message, right? Says, New York City is unaffordable. And people are like, damn right. I don't care that he's brown skin. I don't care that he was born in Kenya. I don't care, Uganda. I don't care that he's Muslim. I don't care he calls himself Democratic Socialist. I like his ideas. Tax the rich, free buses, help tenants, don't kiss up to landlords. Fine, this is good. I like his messaging, knocks on the doors, doesn't throw Palestinians under the bus, doesn't throw trans people under the bus, doesn't throw workers on the bus. No way he can win. Is about to win, Brian. This is like historic. And then Hakeem Jeffries and Senator Schumer, who are the leaders of the Democratic Party and also represent New York, and Gillibrand from New York, still haven't endorsed Mamdani. It is August 21st, 2025. Brian.
Look, I think at this point, any inability to kind of rally around the candidates that the people are very clearly. And by the way, I know that there's all the, like, and this is me coming to you as a secular Jew from New York. I was born in Brooklyn, grew up in New Jersey, and so any focus on issues that are not our political focus, which should be, to your exact point, economically populist ideals. Any focus on any of the bullshit surrounding this stuff or mitigating attention away from this stuff is political malpractice. There's a reason why Mamdani is even garnering the vast majority of support among young Jews in New York. It's because people aren't focused on these culture war wedge issues that I think Republicans rely on to exploit for so long. But it's a distraction from the stuff that we are here to do in politics, which is, again, I mean, I spoke about this just a few minutes ago, lending itself to this thesis of helping people, helping working class people, making sure that we can afford to live. And these are the issues, by the way, these are the positions, by the way, that Democrats purport to stand for and have always purported to stand for. And so now we have somebody who's espousing those actual positions. Get behind him. Like, what are we doing here? Especially when the guy that he's running against is so aggressively problematic in every sense of the word. I mean, the reason that Republicans were able to have so much control in New York, despite the fact that it's a liberal bastion, was because Cuomo entrenched their control with a faction of Orthodox Jews called I believe it was called the IDC within the New York State Legislature. The reason that they had outsized control is because Cuomo gave it to them when he was governor. And so, that speaks a lot to me. That tells me a lot in terms of where political allegiances lie, that you have one person there who used his power to entrench the control of Republicans in New York. And you have another guy right now who is using his platform to focus on issues that impact actual New Yorkers, and
Yep.
how we're not focused on which one might be better for the Democratic Party is beyond me. And of course, we can get embroiled in all of the Israel, like that shit is all, it's a distraction. It really is. Like, that's not what people are not
I mean,
voting.
they're asking him to condemn a statement that he has never used, folks. That's where we are, which is also deeply anti-Muslim and bigoted, right? That somehow just because he's Muslim and brown skinned that you equate him with the most extreme version of support for Palestinians. They're asking him to condemn a slogan he has never used. We're still focused on that, Brian, right? And so much of it is due to Israel and Palestine. And it's another thing I want to bring up because, look, I've said this before, but we haven't talked in a while. I'm a bit older than you, but I think you'll remember this. This is Israel Palestine, specifically what Israel has done, the genocide has committed against Palestinians and is committing, has caused a remarkable global shift in opinion, right?
Yeah.
The only other time I've seen such a remarkable fast shift on such a contentious issue was Obama term one, hey, Dougie, and Obama term two, when it came to marriage equality. Obama term one, folks, the Democrats were like, we love the gays, welcome gays, but traditional marriage. Not making this up. Obama term two, within 4 years, they're like, gays get married, hooray. And that was due to a massive cultural shift where, especially young people, awareness, politics, right, organizing, people are like, yeah, why shouldn't gays get married? I know gays. They let them get married. And now a majority of Americans said, okay, fine with marriage equality. What you're seeing in Israel, Palestine, folks, if you look at the Pew, Gallup, CNN polls, a remarkable shift in 22 months, especially with young people around the world, especially within the Democratic Party, where only 7% of like Democratic voters are like supporting Israel in this war right now. Most of them believe this is a genocide. Most of them want a ceasefire, return of hostages, and most of them are in some way pro-Palestinian in the sense that they want the end of the occupation, right? I think Israel, with its regime, clearly has lost the poll, has poll numbers, has lost the youth, and has lost the culture, right? So this is where the Democratic base is, Brian. They were telling you, not you, Brian, but they were telling the Democratic leaders this 7 months ago. Democrats didn't even bring a single Palestinian speaker to the DNC. Just have a Palestinian mother hold hands with that Jewish mom who gave a beautiful speech, win. They said, shut up, shut your mouth, F you, you're going to vote for us or Trump. And they didn't even send Democrats to talk to Muslims and Arabs in Michigan. And when they did, it was so condescending, right? So this has already happened. Now you fast forward, you have the number two House Democrat, Catherine Clark. I don't know if you saw this. She said what's happening in Gaza right now, it's a genocide. And then she got some pushback. And then she came out 2 days ago and said, oops, my bad. I didn't mean to say that. My bad. Oops. Then you had Schumer last month, July 15th, took a smiling photo with war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu. Okay. I believe, and then Pete Buttigieg, master communicator, fumbled on the Israel-Gaza issue, right? You've seen the people, the majority, the masses, young Jews. New York Times did a great piece on this. He goes, young Jews are for Mamdani, not in spite of, but because of his position on Palestine. And I think it's very important for people to realize that Benjamin Netanyahu's base, folks, is not Jews. He gave up on Jews a long time ago. Benjamin Netanyahu's base, this is very important. Benjamin Netanyahu's base in America is white Christian evangelicals, the white Christian nationalists, right? Young Jews, and majority of Jews do not like Netanyahu and his extremist regime, right? So you see Jews even saying, no, we like Mamdani. Yeah, we heard his position on Palestine. We like him. And still the Democratic leadership says no. I believe, Brian, Democrats cannot escape, punt, whitewash the Israel-Palestine issue. I believe it has now become one of these like fork in the road issues for Democrats, like marriage equality, for example. Like if you say you're against marriage equality, you're not going to be a national Democratic a representative, right?
Yeah.
I think Israel-Gaza is there, but your take on this?
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time thinking about this lately, and uh, here's my perspective. As look, I'm very secular, and so I don't think about I don't think about religion. I also don't cover the Middle East, but just as kind of a layman, secular Jew, I think that the way that Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel have conducted this war has not only been inhumane and one of the most like gut-wrenching, soul-crushing things I've ever seen, and to see this coverage on a daily basis, even in working in politics, where you kind of become normalized to all of the terrible things in the world, it has been kind of unlike anything I've ever seen, and I'm not able to compartmentalize in the same way that I'm able to compartmentalize a lot of this stuff. It is a tragedy like beyond anything that I can really explain. But I also think that Benjamin Netanyahu, like even from the Jewish perspective, has made people like me, has made Jews around the world less safe, and to
Yeah.
do it under the guise of like fighting for the Jewish cause, while you have made look, a lot of people equate Jews with Israel. It's why anti-Semitism is on the rise. Um, the notion that like Benjamin Netanyahu is doing this under the pretext that doing it like to defend Jews or protect Jews. This moment right now in my 36 years of living, I've never felt um, less safe as a Jew than I do right
Mm,
now. And I know that it's
mm.
as the direct result of Benjamin Netanyahu, for his own personal protection, for his own political gain, trying to perpetuate this war so that he can protect himself. And claim that it's somehow it's somehow on behalf of Jews, when first of all, the vast majority of Jews do not support what he's doing, but second of all, he is making life more difficult and more dangerous for Jews around the world. And so you know, I went to Israel when I was a kid. They have something called birthright, and you go to Israel, and of course supportive of the Jewish people and of them having a place to be. But the way that Benjamin Netanyahu has conducted himself in this war has not only again made me feel less safe and Jews across the world feel less safe, but has undermined so much goodwill that I know that Jews and Israelis for so long have felt was so important. I mean, like the Birthright program is to foster links between Israel and American Jews, and it still exists to this day, and it's been around for decades and decades and decades. And so it was always important for Israel to have some sense of connection to American Jews. And in one fell swoop, all of those decades of work were thrown out the window. Why? Because Bibi wanted to protect himself, because he has ongoing legal disputes. And so it's just the extent to which one man could undermine so much of the work that had been done, whether it was leading toward some semblance of a peaceful solution, a peaceful two-state solution, or just ushering in goodwill for Jews around the world, or even Israel around the world, gone in a single second. And the links between Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump cannot be overstated. These people are cut from the exact same mold. They are self-interested beyond anything else, and the collateral effects of their self-interest is that millions and millions and millions of people, and in this case, not just Jews, but Palestinians and Gazans, the extent to which all of those people are worse off because a couple of people are looking out for themselves is just the peak of self-interest, the peak of narcissism, and just these people will go down in history as some of the most dangerous human beings to walk the earth. So
No,
yeah.
I agree. And folks, I want to remind you that I appreciate Brian sharing that. I didn't know that you did Birthright. If you ever
Yeah.
have time, I hope if you ever go back, go check out the West Bank. In the Birthright trips, they never take you to the West Bank. They never take you to the Palestinian side of Hebron. And then when people go visit Hebron, and many Jews that did Birthright, when they go back and they visit Hebron, they see the occupation. They're like, "You never showed me this. Why the hell am I supporting this? Why is U.S. taxpayer dollars supporting this? Why are Democrats supporting occupation, apartheid? Why are our money and our missiles and our tanks going right now to help Israel kill unarmed Palestinians, to starve Palestinian children to death, to perpetuate what Omer Bertov, Israeli-American scholar, wrote in New York Times as a genocide?" And you had Chuck Schumer take a photo with Netanyahu last month as Netanyahu visited Donald Trump, folks. How can you lead this Democratic Party and meet this moment when your leaders are behaving in this way, refusing to say the word oligarchy, refusing to confront a genocide, helping war criminals, right? Not fighting. And then, folks, Brian, you made a point of they always say it's too extreme. Remember, Brian, I said this openly. Maybe we should expand the court because the court is corrupted. Oh, don't say that. Maybe we should reform the court. Shh, shh, don't say that. Maybe we should have, I don't know, Medicare for all. Well, it's too crazy. It's too crazy. Shh. Keep your mouth shut. Maybe we should, tax the rich. Our corporate donors don't like that. Maybe, we don't need billionaires. Stopwatch of living wage, folks. Fighting for a living wage was seen as too extreme a couple of years ago. Maybe, we shouldn't take money from AIPAC. Oh, we kind of like AIPAC, right? All these positions that were seen as super extreme, they're polling very well with the not just Democrats, Brian, also Republicans and independents, right? And so I feel like there's a failure of the leadership that they're refusing to meet the moment, and they refuse to let go of this nut, the nut of like corporate money, the nut of like AIPAC, the centrists, right? Gilding their own lily. You see an example, and I want to ask you about this, about fighting fire with fire, meeting the moment, being agile, adopting these progressive policies that, by the way, even when Republican voters, they test them out with it, they're like, yeah, tax the rich, go after the billionaires. It's very popular. You saw finally yesterday, Republicans do what I knew they were going to do. F you, we have power, we don't care, we're going to gerrymander. How are you going to stop us? You saw Governor Hochul say, game on, in a tweet response. I think they should be proactive and do it, Brian, because to me, we're dealing with a right-wing authoritarian fascist movement. Republicans are not going to stop. They're going to go for power by any violent, illegal means necessary. And I still feel that Democrats and the Democratic governors are playing double dutch. They're like, we might jump in. We might jump in. We might jump in. I want to tell them, jump in. It's time. Your take.
Could not agree more for two reasons. One, it's not just about tit for tat, right? It's not just about, okay, if you're going to do 5 seats, we're going to do 5 seats, because then what's the deterrent effect? If all that happens is that worst case scenario, we engage in a long, lengthy, expensive process that may or may not work out, where we can just neutralize exactly what they do, where's the deterrent effect in that? I spoke to Mark Elias about this, and he had a line that I want to give him full credit for, because it is absolutely my position. If they go for 5 seats, we go for 30 seats. There has
Yep.
to be some deterrent. There has to be some reason that makes Republicans wake up in the morning and say, hey, let's not fuck with these guys, because if we do, it's going to really come back and bite us in the ass. So absolutely, if we see Texas going for 5 seats, not only should California jump in and gerrymander the everlasting shit out of our maps, but Illinois, New York, Maryland. We have other weapons in Washington and Oregon. I interviewed Governor Polis in Colorado the other day, and we spent 10 minutes at the beginning of the interview, me pushing him over and over and over and over about the idea of unilateral disarmament as it pertains to those maps in Colorado, because there's an independent redistricting commission, and he wouldn't bite. And there was a point I said to him, is there anything that can happen in the external environment here that could make you rethink your allegiance to independent redistricting commissions? Because we've also had independent redistricting commissions in California. We have them in New York. Both governors have signaled that the national environment has allowed them to rethink what's happening right now. And basically he said no. Granted, Polis is term limited in 2026, and so I hope that the next person that comes in has more of a forward-leaning posture about this stuff and recognizes that, like, if you're in a position where you can actually do something, think to yourself, what are you there to do? Are you there? Did you run for office to defend processes or the filibuster or the parliamentarian or independent redistricting commissions or vague, nebulous good government organizations? Or are you there to actually do the stuff you campaigned on? If it was to expand healthcare, to protect reproductive rights, to combat climate change, to make sure that kids are safe in schools from guns, to make sure that workers can get paid a living wage, to make sure that unions are protected in this country, and on and on. If those are the things that you ran on, then do whatever the fuck you have to do to make those things happen. And if an independent redistricting commission is standing in your way, roll it the fuck over. If
Roll
the
it over.
filibuster is standing in your way, if the parliamentarian is standing in your way, if any good government reforms are standing in your way, like, barrel through those things, because that's not what you ran on. You ran on protecting people. You ran on helping the middle class. You ran on making sure that workers have some dignity. If those are the things that you ran on, then make sure that whatever is in between you and those things, that you barrel through it. And unless that becomes our North Star, that's the weakness that pervades the party. This sense that we're here to, like, protect the institutions of government instead of the people that the government is supposed to protect.
That's wonderfully said. And folks, it's not working because the New York Times just reported that the Democratic Party, the DNC, has a low number of voter registration, low number of funds, also has its lowest rating or approval rating since 1994. The writing is on the wall, folks. Annette Shankar Osorio, I'm sure you've talked to before, who's also does fantastic polls, said when people are asked about the Democratic Party, the analogy they give is a deer in headlights, weak. Whereas when they're asked about Republicans, even though they're not popular with the majority, they see as like bears and tigers, right? Republicans, I'll give them credit where credit's due. Republicans bring a bazooka to a knife fight. When Republicans get power, they don't give a shit about polls, approval rate. They don't even give a shit about their own base. They just get it done. Whatever they want to get done, they get done. We said we're going to get rid of Medicare. We're going to get rid of Medicare. We're going to give tax cuts to the rich, even though the big, beautiful bill is deeply unpopular. We don't care. We're going to do it. We're in power. Stop us. What are you going to do to stop us? And they don't respect us because the rest of us are civil, right? We bend the knee. When they go low, we go high. Yeah. And then they just literally take out our knees. When they go low and we go high, we lose. When they go low, you take them out by their goddamn knees. You put them in a knee bar. That is a legal UFC move. And I believe right now, the Democrats still have some power left, right? Democratic governors have power, and they are in charge of the most populous states in America, New York City, California, Illinois, which are also economic hubs, right? So we have actually a lot of power, Brian. Will they flex it? Will they be bold? Will they be agile? Will they meet the moment? So far, I'm sorry to say this, they have failed. And I'm not the only one who believes this. Look at the DNC's ratings. I do believe, though, like when Gavin did what he did, I'm not the biggest fan of him, but I don't have to be the biggest fan. I don't worship politicians. I'm like you. I people say, Waj, why are you so critical of Democrats? And this is why I say, number one, I don't bend the knee to politicians. I don't worship them. They're not my heroes. They're tools to me, folks. And I want a sharpened tool to help the people. If a politician, a tool is not helping the people, if it's a dull blade, you replace him or her with a sharper blade because the politician is a servant of the people to help the people. That's it. I criticize them to sharpen them, right? To say, hey, this is where you need to go. This is how you win. And this is how you defeat fascism. If they still refuse to learn, I'm like, okay, we need a culling. We need to replace you with someone better. That's it. That's it, folks. That's why I criticize the Democratic Party. And it seems after 7 months, Brian, especially in the past month, maybe in the past 2 weeks, I think the message has finally gone through, Brian. I think the message has finally gone through. And they look at the poll numbers, they look at the funding, they're going to see Gavin Newsom's poll numbers rise, and they're like, oh, maybe we should fight. But the fact they still haven't jumped in, Brian, I promised you that I'd let you go in 30 minutes. I'm going to give the final word to you. They listen to you, Brian. You're the Democratic whisperer. Who am I? I'm a crazy brown guy that, says crazy things. Uh, the push, the gentle push for the Democrats to meet the moment, what would you recommend? Because they're going to be listening to you. For those who are still on the fence, who are afraid, who are listening to the third way, to corporate consultants, who are worried about Chet wearing a MAGA hat in the Rust Belt, drinking real coffee, who hasn't voted for them for 10 years, but they still think they might win him over while they're, ignoring their own base, which are black voters and brown voters, and 45% of white women. Your recommendation to them, that gentle push that lets them finally pick up the brass knuckles and fight.
Look, these are politicians first and foremost, and so they respond to incentives. The fact that Gavin Newsom is getting so much attention should hopefully serve as a wake-up call that the Democratic base and the country more broadly is looking for one thing. It is not someone who is weak or looking to capitulate. It is someone who is forward-leaning and going to fight. That's it. That's the whole ballgame right now. I have talked to so many people on both sides of the aisle that agree. Like I've talked to from Mehdi Hassan to like everybody who agrees that the focus moving forward in the Democratic Party is not going to be whether you are progressive or moderate. There are people in moderate districts that are, know how to win their districts. There's people in progressive districts that know how to win their districts. The distinguishing factor in terms of whether you're going to win moving forward is going to be whether you are a fighter or somebody who is not looking to fight. And so I'm happy to have anybody in the party, depending on what district you represent, depending on what state you represent, political ideologies be damned. If you are looking to fight, and specifically to fight for working class people, then you are doing your job in the party. Avoid safe messaging, unoffensive messaging, tiptoeing around issues, making sure that things are poll tested, making sure that they're focus groups. Fuck all that. Talk like a normal human being, stand for something, and actually fight for it. You don't have to wait 6 days to get the results of some poll back before you can figure out whether it's okay to talk about something. You know what to do. You know what people are looking for. You can see the positive reinforcement that Newsom is getting right now. Replicate that. We are showing you what we're looking for. Listen to us.
Yeah, I will say just to cliff notes that fighting spirit, fighting message, fighting rhetoric, balls to the wall. Number one, whoever is a fighter is going to be rewarded. Even if you don't win, I'm a sports fan. Your team fights to the end. You go, damn right, that's my team. That's what we want. We want someone who's willing to fight, to take on Goliath, all right? Or in this case, aging man tits with cankles. Secondly, an economic populist message. Doesn't matter where you are. You go in robust with an economic populist message, the many versus the few, tax the rich against the billionaires, against the oligarchy. I'm going to fight for wages, for workers, for healthcare, an economic populist message. It's right there in front of you. It's right there. And then third thing I'll say is because Democrats are getting some terrible, terrible corporate consulting on this, do not throw the woke under the bus. When you go woke, you go broke. Nope. Target just lost its CEO. Why? Because they went anti-woke, anti-DEI, and people of color who are your base, the Democrats, you cannot ignore people of color, brown people, black people, women, LGBTQ, Jews, Muslims. You can't ignore us. We're your shadow. You can't ignore us. Uh, Go woke. You saw Target go down with sales, and you saw what? Costco go up. You just need someone to articulate it and fight for it, right? So don't throw us under the bus. You saw Mamdani. He did not throw workers under the bus, Palestinians under the bus, Muslims under the bus, LGBTQ under the bus. So whoever's telling you, oh, we got to throw the woke, meaning people of color and the weak under the bus, no, you have to lift them up. And bringing it full circle, the way you get a lot of the white folks on board is, again, it's a multicultural coalition. We're all in this, and we're all in this against the same common enemy, the billionaires, the oligarchy. And once you pose it like that, there's a reason why all those white folks, Brian, came out to listen to Bernie and AOC in the Fighting the Oligarchy tour. So that's just my take on it, folks. And the last thing I will say, the asterisk, is I do believe Israel-Palestine is now a litmus test. I folks, if you're a Democrat and you're listening to this, I know AIPAC, I know ADL, I know others. It's a brand new ball game. Read the room. Read the room. See what Netanyahu's doing. See what's happening in Gaza. You don't have to throw anyone under the bus. You don't have to throw Jews under the bus, Palestinians under the bus, Israelis under the bus. But you do not, and I mean you do not, have to embrace Israel's war machine and the extremist rhetoric and policies of the Netanyahu government. Just read the room, folks. Read the youth. They're telling you. They're telling you. And again, I want to remind people that young Jews in New York love Mamdani, not in spite of, but because of his positions on the woke, on Palestine, on Gaza, and making it an affordable city. So it's right there in front of you. The battle plan's right there in front of you. The talking points are right there in front of you. Will they take it, Brian? I don't know. You're the one telling them to do the right thing. They listen to you. I kept you for 5 minutes longer than I would. Thanks for staying. We have 2,200 people watching. Brian, before I let you go, shamelessly promote yourself.
Yes, well, we're on Substack right now, so a great help for me would be if anybody is not yet subscribed to my Substack, you can go ahead and hit the subscribe button on that. That's a great way to support my work and my team as well. So I appreciate it.
How about YouTube?
Of course, yeah. My YouTube channel is Brian Tyler Cohen. That is my main platform where I'm spending most of my life, trafficking in the toxic sludge that is politics these days. So if you want to support me there, that would be great as well.
It's fantastic because someone said we should do this again. Folks, who am I? I'm nobody. Brian's like a rock star. So I text Brian and then I wait. And then 1 week later, he gets back to me. And I said, thanks for getting back to me. And then we plan it. He goes, I'm so busy, but he always makes time. I appreciate it. Brian's a very busy man. This has been the Left Hook Substack, folks. I have no paywalls. I'm not a fool. I'm just a terrible capitalist. I believe people should be informed during the fight for democracy against fascists. If you can, please subscribe to Brian. Subscribe to me. If you have a few bucks, give it to Brian. If you have a few bucks left after, become a paid subscriber. I have 800 kids. I need to feed at least one of them. But if you can't, at least subscribe, share this information, spread the word. An informed electorate is necessary to organize the mass resistance. And I will say this, I know things look very bleak, folks. There are more of us than there are of them. We have the numbers. And Donald Trump is underwater. His policies are failing. His Latino support, Brian has completely flipped. The young people who are voting for him, young people didn't know any better. They're like, man, I voted for this guy to bring down prices. What the F? So he is weak and he is vulnerable, folks. We organize, we have the numbers, we can boycott, we can strike, we can vote, we can push it back. A final note of hope. Elon Musk spent more than $20 million in that Wisconsin Supreme Court race, right? The liberal judge was supposed to lose. She won by double digits. So be informed, be kind, be empathetic, and please, oh, please don't be a fascist. Brian, thank you, sir.
Thanks, Waj. I appreciate it.
Later, everyone.